You are listening to the new man beyond the macho jerk and the new age wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
What do you think your partner's hiding from you? Are there challenges in your relationship that you're afraid to discuss with her? And are you spending more time complaining than talking about what you want? Today, my wife, Alyson Lanier, returns to the show. She has over 20 years of professional experience helping individuals and couples through relationship challenges. In this discussion, we talk about some of the tough conversations we face with each other, why so many couples are making things way harder than they need to be, and we even explore what we can learn by watching women pleasure themselves. So yeah, you want to speak into that. You're going to need your notes.
It's a little like more at my nose than my mouth.
Well, then you want to point it at your mouth.
Look at this.
There you go. That's pointing at your throat now.
Well, okay.
A little bit. There you go. That's
maximum. This is developed by men.
You think microphones were developed by men? Okay. Well, explain that.
I already told you. I'm not saying this. You're recording. I know what you're doing.
No, I want to know why you think microphones were developed by men. I want to see where this goes.
Because when you set me up for these things, you put the mic right in my, like a dick in my face. Like, here. You see this?
So you think that we developed, men were like, this is a way to get dicks. This is a way to get dicks.
No, it's all like subconscious. It's like, this is really good. This is like phallus is like the monument, Washington Monument.
So we just wake up every morning. It's like, I gotta make dicks,
dudes. Yeah, like yeah, exactly. Like it looks like. Did you see this?
Like, is this where you just wanna?
Okay, yeah, I'll own it. This is like
your desire.
So when I sit here and this mic is like an inch from my mouth, less than an inch from my mouth.
Yeah,
feels like somebody's trying to shove something in my face.
Wow.
Like a mic or a dick.
It could just be a microphone. It could just be a tool.
It's totally just a mic. That's how I'm going to look at it.
You know what? You could look at it through and it's like, it's trying to help you be heard. It's trying to help you. It's not trying to offend you.
Right.
Yeah. It's just trying to help.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Welcome to the new man.
You want to do the intro?
Tripp Lanier.
Oh, how does it go?
I'm awesome.
Do that intro. Let me hear it. Let me hear the new man intro.
Let's see if I can do it without laughing. Welcome to the new man. I'm Tripp Lanier. We're talking to my wife today. I'm gonna find ways to be awesome in the interview.
Wow.
No, I'm teasing. You are good.
Wow. Anything else you want to get off your chest before we get started here?
I might be feeling a little frisky today.
You might be feeling a little frisky? You mean like you need to attack me some more?
No. Do you feel attacked?
Yes.
You do not. Do you?
I am wounded.
How are you feeling attacked?
I am wounded and I'm outraged.
God. All right.
I'm offended.
What are you not telling me?
That's what
Today on the show.
Well, let's talk about that because that is what we're talking about. You and I both work as professionals and we talk to people. And inevitably, I think more in your line of work, the relational stuff comes up, and you describe that scenario that you hear where people come to you and they've got a problem with. They start to talk about their relationship and what are you hearing?
Well, essentially, what I hear a lot repetitively is the two couples are just kind of on different planets. Each person, respectively, is on a different planet. And meaning what they believe is going on, what they think they've communicated, or what they even think is going on with the other person, or how they think the relationship is going is really different.
They're just completely missing one another. I find this like if you were to ask one person in the relationship, hey, how are things going with you and your spouse or your partner? They say, yeah, things are fine. And then the other person would be like, I don't know how much longer I can take this.
I want a divorce. I'm like thinking about getting a divorce, or I can't stand him, or I can't believe he doesn't, Yeah.
So that's the two sides. Those are the two planets that we get in. And that person who might be really struggling, or they might both be struggling, but there's one that wants to maintain a certain, like, hey, everything's fine and everything's good, but they're not talking about it necessarily.
Yeah.
They might be talking about it with other people. They might be complaining and bitching and moaning. They may even be going to somebody like you or somebody like me to talk about it. But when we say, "Hey, have you talked to your partner about this?
No,
have you?"
That's right.
And then they're just like,
No,
I haven't talked to them about it."
One of my first question always is, "Well, have you asked them about this thing that you're thinking is going on?" And they're like, the silence, just crickets.
And this is about sex. This is about money. This could be about...
It could be about shared responsibilities and roles in the house. It can be about, really, it's about things, often it's just about what's not happening the way that they want it to happen, or the relation. It could be, so it could be relational, or it could be real practical.
Okay.
But sort of, it's whatever it is, isn't going down the way that they want it to go down, or the way that lights them up and has them feeling like they're in a partnership.
Okay. The things that I hear from guys are the problems are sex. Either they're not having sex. The other one would be something around money. There's some aspect, somebody's spending and not spending, or whatever. It might be a way how they're dealing with their kids. One might be parenting a certain style, and the other one's not doing that. They don't have it. They're not on the same page with that. And then there's just like the stuff around the house, like who's going to do whatever.
Sure.
But those areas can get really, can start to really create a bind. And it's easy to be like, well, my partner's not doing this, she's not doing this, or he's not doing that. But then we're not speaking up and saying, well, will you do this or won't you do that? And I just want to kind of lay this out is that everybody can be acting like everything's great. Like if you actually talk to somebody, they can be like, yeah, everything's fine. But then this is the norm, that they're tolerating this level of dis-ease, right? This level of discomfort and this and it just becomes the norm for them. But it's building up a lot of toxicity. It has them become roommates instead of lovers. There's the couples that are out there, they're more invested in looking good, and they kind of Photoshop their lives. But if you actually get to know them, who they are behind closed doors, they're mean to each other. They're really hard on each other,
or very distant, or distant. One of the examples I can think of that you talked about with what you hear a lot with no sex. I'm thinking of a couple that I worked with about a year ago who they really did life well. Like they were good partners in life. They were good parents, and they handled things pretty well. And but they just had zero sex, and there's a trauma history there for each of them, and they basically just went with it, went along with well, everything else is good, so what if this little area is full of cobwebs and yuckiness? And then, but periodically, pretty much every 6 weeks, they would have a huge blow up fight, and it was about basic deep needs, deep intimacy, pleasure, all those things not getting met. And they wouldn't necessarily say that though in the fight. It was often just oh, you're such a blobbity blue, and it's oh, I know I'm not enough, or you this, blame this, or why can't you be this, or that sort of thing. So, but so that's where you talked about tolerating it, and this couple had been together for almost 20 years, so they it's you figure out what you tolerate versus what you really want.
Okay. And the things that I hear from guys are well, we're not talking about it because my partner, she doesn't listen, or she gets too emotional, or she's going to just shoot me down. We can't be helped. We tried. We went to a couple of therapy sessions one time, and it didn't work.
Well, and there's also I don't want it. Everything's great. I don't things aren't wrong for me. It's only wrong with her.
So that's the flip
she's
side,
the one
right?
that she's just crazy, or she's just emotional, or it's never enough. There can be sort of a reverse thing around the reverse not taking responsibility, I'm fine.
Well, that takes two people. That's the thing, is if there's a dynamic in there, it takes both sides. One may be hiding the information, but the other person has to be how in the dark can you be, right? You feeling your partner withdrawn from you, or noticing that this person isn't speaking up or like, how's everything going? Fine. Really? Fine. Is your
but
answer?
there's a lot of people that are willing to just be like, okay, if
That's
you
what I
say
mean.
it's
Is
fine.
that's what I mean. Is they're willing to just buy into it and be like, okay, she said she was fine. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to ignore my intuition that says something's off here. That's the part where I'm saying
I don't want to poke the skunk. Like I don't want to, I don't want to get into this.
We can't talk about it without fighting or hurting one another or spending more time. I'll spend more time blaming and bitching to my friends or out there or just stewing in my own shit rather than let's figure out a solution here. And it feels like a resignation. It's just like you throw up your arms, like whatever.
Totally.
Damned if I do, damned if I don't.
And respect. Like a lot of people are hustling every day, and I see it all the time. Like there's one partner is like, I'm just full. Like just let me watch my show, like, or just let me have some space by myself. And but that precious time at the end of the day or on the weekend is like more valued to like, let me just take care of myself and not us, not tend to what's might be going on here that could make my whole life better.
Yeah. And we've gone through versions of this. I don't want to paint some picture that you and I are somehow immune from this. We've had to deal with it. There was challenges that we've had with regards to our sex life after our daughter was born.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Right. Attraction for others.
Yeah. That's all been on the show already. We should.
There's been
bring
money
up
stuff.
more.
We've had money issues to go through. There's been parenting challenges, particularly for me. And then with regards to your own spirituality and how that maps up with our relationship. And so there's places where we've drawn lines and be like, yeah, we can talk about things, but only up to this point. We don't go into that territory because that's where things can get dicey.
Well, and I want to speak to that because I mean, more like the real sort of like what people love to know, like what's inside our house, like what goes on between.
Let's not talk about us right now. That one.
Everything's fine. Let's Photoshop our lives and post it on Instagram. So, no, but what happens, and I'll just speak for myself here, because this is I think this can speak to how things can feel complex on the inside, even when they might not seem so on the outside. Like from you to me, like it's real. I might be all kinked up and you're like, what's going on over there? So with regards to spirituality, that's been a really deeply private piece of my life, my whole life. I've just had a deeply private relationship with my spirituality. And, I just in my own personal growth, really deciding that it's as a mother and where I am in my life, just really coming into a clarity that I can't cordon off and sort of hide this aspect of me that's really a huge piece of me. And because of whatever, it could be all the shaming or like all the ways that we're all kinked up and wounded around spirituality and religion or whatever.
Sex, all this stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. Like fill in the blank. That's
Money,
why I'm
sex,
trying to say
that,
this. Yeah. So like fill in the blank that fits for you as the listener. But like, because of all the things that have caused, armoring or contraction or some sort of like, that doesn't feel good to go there. And this is really precious to me. And I don't want anybody fucking with this. This is why I've kept it private, right? So there's a piece of that that's like, it can be really uncomfortable for me. It can mean a lot to me. So like, what happens if I bring it to you and you shoot it down, or you and I have it can occur on the outside that we have pretty different views. Right. And one of the things for me that stops me from bringing more to you in this context, with this topic, is I am very aware, like you have what occurs to me as set ideas on a thing, on the spirituality thing, or on the religious thing, or on the whatever, on the life after death thing, or not, or that sort of thing. And your fixed ideas are so fixed that I get the experience of like, well, you're not gonna be open to what I have to say. You're not gonna, even if you are willing to listen to what I have to say, then you're still going to be like, oh, that's just her making shit up again. Like there's this experience of like, wait, he's not willing to actually meet me and get to know me here. And like in a way where maybe some diminishing or just, but there's sort of this experience of like, you're just not available. And that's the thing that I really want to speak to when it comes to like, well, what are we doing? And how do we, like all the complaints, it comes from these really often tender places where the thing that we want to bring up really matters to us, but we don't know how to do it without kind of sliming, like sadly, like for me, I've slimed you plenty of times of like, you're just going to be like this, or you're just going to think that. And you're like, whoa, who are you talking about? Right.
I felt that way a couple of minutes ago when you were like, you're going to be this way, you're going to be the other way. I was like, wow. Cause I was in my mind, I'm thinking, actually, I've always listened to you.
You've always listened.
I've always been curious about, help me understand what you're saying. But I get that where it's still like, you need something else in order to feel more safe or more open, or you want more accept. There's something in there where you want my validation, and without that, let me check this out. Without that validation, it still feels unsafe. It still feels like I'm over here and I'm getting ready to judge you or come down on you.
Without the validation, you said?
Yeah. What's missing there? Because I'm like, wow,
I think for me, what's missing for me, which I don't always catch. You catch this. I mean, I try to catch it, but it's that piece that we're like the checking it out. Like I'm holding a story. I'm looking through a certain lens. Right. I'm looking at you in a certain way, in a certain light. That's a story I'm telling about you. And so
this is how you are. This is how you are.
All the behaviors and factors, and I can find a million different nonverbal reasons through your nonverbal body language that that's actually is happening in the story. Like, oh, see, he's doing that. See, he did that with his eyes, or see, he did that with his breath. And there it supports the story that I'm holding about him. Even if that's what's happening, I'm actually not checking it out. And there's an opportunity when I check it out, not just for me to own that I'm actually holding you at arm's length, but there's also an opportunity that if you happen to be doing those things, it's being called out, it's being named. So you get to be like, oh my God, I totally was doing that thing.
Yeah.
Shit, I don't want to do that with you.
All right. There's so much. Let's unpack this because I wasn't anticipating we were going to go here. But there's a few things that happen when we're in a place where we feel vulnerable. Whether it has to do with money or sex or just wanting attention or connection or depth. Like, hey, I'm really into personal development. My partner's not into personal development. I'm really into spirituality in this way. And my partner's not into that. Like, whatever it is, there's something that's sacred to us. It means a lot to us, where we have a story that our partner's not into it. And so we clamp down and then we actually... What I'm getting is we actually start to look for validation that they're not into it.
That's right.
We look for it's like, see?
That's right.
See, they're not into it. It's not safe to bring it up. And so that's where we hide out. That's where we create a division. And I want to there's a huge cost to this, which is that it kills trust.
Absolutely.
It kills the bond.
It creates distance right away.
Toxicity, resentment, it kills sexual chemistry, it has us believe the relationship's in a much worse place than it actually is. Yeah. And so the part that we want to name here is like, we can feel justified. See, he huffed there. He did a little sigh.
Yeah, totally.
He doesn't have any point here. And we're going to talk is how to clear this up a bit more, name this stuff as we go through it. But we can't just buckle and be like, see that my partner's not on the same page.
And I think this is the part where it gets really hard for people. Because it's hard. It happens really fast. It takes some level of self-awareness to be like, oh my God, I'm the one that's holding you at arm's length. All the while I'm telling the story that you're not going to be open to what I have to bring.
Exactly. That's the part I want to underline is that if we're sitting out there and we're the ones that are feeling blaming or judgy or pissed off or resentful about our partner, we've got to take a look at like, where am I how am I the person that's pushing them away?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like we want to take responsibility for that. Yeah. And it might seem like that might be the place where we just are in our blind spot where we're doing what we need to do to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
We want to be right.
Yeah.
We want to avoid, getting hurt. We want to avoid risk. We want to avoid looking stupid or looking weak or being wrong. We want to avoid all of those different places. And so this is where we will will choose to perpetuate this story that it's our partner that is the one that's creating this distance.
Yeah.
And so we miss the opportunity to see where we can take responsibility for ourselves. Doesn't mean we have to collapse. They may have a part in it as well.
Totally.
They may be doing some dumb shit, but we've got to look at our part in co-creating that.
Yeah. And that, that's something that I'm thinking of another couple that I worked with, and it was like every time they would just attempt to clear something or connect on something, it would end up in a fight. And it was basically like each of them were having this sort of respective dance with their stories and not with each other, but it was happening so fast. It would escalate so fast. And so then the experience that they get left with is like, screw this. This is like, she's just going to blow up at me, or I can't have a conversation without getting angry. And she collapses when I get angry. And, then it's about me being angry. And like, it just goes off track.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in this scenario before we talk about, some of the ways that we can clear it up. Because what I see happening in these scenarios is that first and foremost is we're just not taking responsibility. We're not speaking up.
Sure.
So that's the big one, is just that we're hiding out, period. It's too scary to bring to our partner. So we just say, hey, I can't talk to them about it. We come up with some reason. Hey, it's Tuesday. I can't talk to my partner about it on Tuesday. And
that's right. I have a really busy day.
I have a full day.
I don't want to do it at the end of the day.
Or he's full. He can't take it.
He's got a lot going on.
She can't do this. So we just find a reason to avoid that discomfort or that risk or that opportunity to look bad, to fail. We get into a victim mindset. We want to be taken care of.
Yeah.
This is what infants do. What do infants do? They cry, they complain, and then they wait for somebody to figure out what they want and then bring it to them. So it's somebody else's responsibility to figure out what they want and then bring it to them. So a lot of folks say, well, I am doing something. I'm complaining.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is a very articulate way of basically saying, like, that angst that we feel, the friction that we feel when we don't like it and we don't really know what to do about it. And so there's just this experience of like, oh, you should just get this. You should just know. Why can't you get this? Why can't you see that, especially when it comes to rolls around the house, it's like, can't you see that the trash is overflowing? Am I the only person living in this house that looks around with their eyes? It's like that. Those are the kinds of complaints and aggression that's like, bleh, that comes out.
Yeah. And I think it's where people just don't understand the difference between complaining and requesting, right? Like the request is vulnerable. Hey, I'd like for you to have more sex with me. I'd like for you to do whatever, save money or whatever. Those are the places where our partner can be like, no. And then we're trying to avoid that no. We're trying to avoid that rejection.
Yeah.
So we just say, this sucks. I don't like this. I don't like the way you do that. I don't like the way you do this. And it creates a little bit more of protection from that place where we could get hurt, where we could get denied. And that's what we're playing for that. We're playing defense in that scenario instead of, hey, here's what I want. So that first part is that understanding the difference between complaining and bitching and moaning about something versus speaking up and saying, hey, here's what I want instead. The next one that I see is that we hear is like, I shouldn't have to ask. They shouldn't have to be told what I want. You kind of touched on this just a minute ago, where it seems obvious to us. Super obvious. Yeah. And I'd like to just
mean, I don't know anything about this, but
oh, really?
Super fucking obvious.
Oh, you want to, something we need to clear
teasing. Up? We already cleared it up. I'm teasing now.
The kitchen seems to be a place. The kitchen seems to be the place where there's a lot of obvious stuff for us. Well, let's talk about what happens in the kitchen, because there's things in the kitchen for me. It's like, you're like, isn't it obvious that the trash needs to be taken out? And I'm like, isn't it obvious that the shit that's been on the floor for 2 days needs to be picked up? So there's places where we miss each other.
Absolutely.
What I value is different than what you value.
That's right.
But we assume, hold on, let me finish. Because we assume that what's valuable to me individually, I assume that you get it too. This is what's valuable to you. So why aren't you getting it? And that's where we miss each other. It's like, no, this person doesn't really give a shit about that. They give a shit about something else. So,
but that's not the thing that gets thought. Like, that's not the thought that gets thought. It's like, oh, but instead it's they just don't care, or they don't care about me, or they don't care about
we take it personally
this house.
too.
They don't care, or they're just not going to change because they don't see those things intuitively the way that we see. They're not tracking the same things we're tracking. We're not making requests. And so there's this thing around like, oh, I've asked him. He just doesn't ever do it. It's like always up to me to remind him or whatever. And so there can be a story that gets created of he's not going to change.
Right.
And that's not true. I think the thing that happens is that they get into these little eddies of complaining or assuming it's obvious or wanting them to just get it because we've said it once or twice before or even 6 times before. But whatever, there's a thing that's missing because people, I mean, for the most part, couples that want to be couples that really want to be together give a shit.
Well, it's also I give a shit about you and what you value. It may not be that valuable to me, but if it's valuable to you, I want to hear about it, right? And it may not be in the
that's a
kitchen.
developmental piece. I mean, not every couple has that going for him, but
if you think about it, like that's a step towards health versus a
Totally.
step towards you're only in my life to make me comfortable. Don't get in my way.
Absolutely.
Which is, hey, we're here to support one another. So what was that smile? What was that?
I was just thinking about, I don't know if it was yesterday or it was last week or something. You were like, we were talking about this a little bit when you were saying you wanted to do a podcast, and we were talking about roles as it like, should we use the example of roles? Like wanting, since you've shifted, you're writing a book and all the things that are great about the book, but you're more available to like take our kid to school or pick her up or whatever.
I never said I was more available.
Yeah, so it's obvious to me. Anyway, I was smiling because you said, I just remember you standing in the kitchen smiling and being like, everything's awesome as long as nothing changes. Or something like that. Like, as long as you don't ask me to do anything more. I can't remember how you said it, but
everything's great as long as you keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, as long as you keep your mouth shut and do everything or something. I can't remember.
All right.
It was good.
Okay, so there is that thing is like I shouldn't have to ask, but it goes a little deeper because we can start to, if we realize, hey, look, we're not on the same page here, it can get a little deeper, which is if my partner doesn't get it, then we're really not on the same page. We're not compatible.
Yeah.
It's one thing if we just have roommate problems,
Yeah.
right? You can't pick up after yourself and you can't do this and you can't do that and I don't do the other things you like. That's just, we'd have those issues with anybody we
That's
lived
true.
with. But the aspects about that make us partners in our lives together
That's
is
right.
different. It's like, oh, wait a second. This person just does not see
That's
the
right.
world the way that I do. And that can be really scary. And so when we say, hey, I don't want to have to ask you to do this, it's really saying, I want you to see the world in a similar way that I do. I want you to value some of the things that I value so that I don't want to have to come to you and be like, isn't this important to you? And that's a deeper.
It's a great distinction that you just made too, because it is true. I mean, this is what this is all about. It's like a taproot into these deeper places where no one's really been trained. There's no classes at school. You don't go through elementary school or junior or middle school or high school or college where anyone says there's going to be a class or 3 on how to go through something difficult in relationship and come out okay on the other side. How do you do that skillfully? Mm-hmm. Nobody has been taught that.
Right, we watch other people.
And so we just kind of fumble fuck our way through. And then what happens is like we just gloriously fail. We just make so many mistakes and it's charged because it's what we care about. And then there's this pressure of like, oh my God, this is our relationship. And what does this say and mean about us? And there's all the things that it's like, it's just a time bomb waiting to go off. And so that's a really important distinction of the avoiding. Like,
and if I'm scared to be in a relationship, right? Just relationships scary anyway, right? It's a place where we're drawn. We want this connection, but at the same time, it feels like it can become a trap. It feels like it can become a limitation. It's where we go to lose our energy and our freedom and all of that kind of stuff. So if I'm already on the defense, like, oh, I got to watch out about being in this relationship, then I'm going to be on the lookout for danger.
For
so I'm
things
like,
to support that story.
wait a second.
That's right.
My partner's didn't want to read this book. That means we're not meant to be
means they
together.
don't care. Yeah.
Right. So we start to we look for evidence.
Yeah.
For where there's an imbalance and where things are off. And so we start to build that kind of worry, like, oh my God, right? And we create this, it's just a lot of resentment, but also just a lot of worry. Like, oh my gosh, am I in the wrong place? But it's not checking it out. It's not, and we'll talk about checking it out in a minute. But okay, the things I want to talk about. So what are we really avoiding here? We've been touching on it a bit. It's the discomfort. I don't want to feel the tension. I don't want to go through the conflict. I don't want to experience the arguing, the fighting, or the crying. There's risk involved. I don't want to do anything.
There's rejection involved.
Right. Right. I don't want to screw something up. I don't want this, if we were to bring up this conversation, it might mean the end of the relationship. It might mean the end of something.
That's what I meant by fumble fucking. Like, pretty often, if you're not practicing and with somebody who wants to practice or knows how to, even is willing to set each other in a context of practice, like, we're not going to get this right, then there can be this intention of like, hey, I wanted to bring this thing, and oh no, I just made it so much worse.
Right. Now there's tears. We were having a good day, and now we're having a lousy day. Right. I don't know how many times I've talked to guys that, the expiration date's up on their relationship, and the thing that they're playing against is like, it's not about happiness or what's right in the relationship. They just don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the jerk. Like, I don't want to bring this up because then I'm the bad guy if I don't want to be in the relationship anymore. I'm the bad guy if I'm having a problem about that. So they want to avoid that role or that identity of being the bad guy. So discomfort, whatever that is, how it feels, the risk, there might be something that could damage the relationship or our financial situation or whatever it is. There's something at risk there. And then looking bad. And then, that piece, like, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to have something blow up in my face and be called out on it, right? I kind of like, if I'm in this place where I'm comfortable, and I might be just...
Oh, there's huge discomfort in what we're talking about doing.
Right.
I mean, this is actually the act of relating and being willing to stay in a relationship, which means that shit's going to change.
Right.
Like, the way that you do things is not just for you anymore or with you anymore. And what you do has impact.
And so I was going to say, we stay stuck in what we know.
Right.
At least, hey, if we're having a sexless marriage and we fight every 6 weeks about it, at pattern. At least I know that pattern, which is different than we're going to go down this road. I don't know what it's going to cost. I don't know if I'm going to look like a moron. I don't know if I'm going to, be called out for something. I don't know what's going to happen. That feels like crap. I'll just rather stay here in this place where we just kind of die on the vine slowly instead of step into this uncertainty. We don't see the possibility on the other side. All we see are the scary things that might happen. So that's why we just tell ourselves, it's not worth it. Let's just, it's not a big deal. Everybody else has problems. So let's just keep.
Yeah, you're reminding me of something that I did this a lot with families when I worked with families, but I still do it with couples from time to time when there's a lot of tension and stress just upon the first session. And the question is...
So you're working with both of them?
I'm working with both of them in the room, and I say, like, okay, well, let's just name what's your greatest hope, and then what's your biggest fear out of being here, like doing what you're doing, taking the act of getting help. And pretty much 98% of the time, the biggest fear is like, this is all going to fall apart. Something big's going to be revealed, and we won't be able to survive it. Like, we're going to split up.
Both of them are
afraid of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And it looks different. Like, with one partner might be like the thing that gets revealed, they're not interested in it. And therefore that tells me that I have to go because they're not willing to walk this path with me. And then, or it's like, I'm afraid that whatever gets revealed, she can't handle or he can't handle. And then it'll be his cue to be like, all right, I'm out.
And then what about the things that they're wanting?
And the things that they're wanting, often it's like, I want to be able to get through. I want to know that we can get through anything together. Like, I want to be able to bring up the stuff that we haven't been able to do on our own and figure it out. Like, we need help, and I want to be able to know that we can get on the other side of this and be better for it. And so, but just to speak to that piece.
Well, I think that's important, because a lot of times when we talk about, hey, I'm going to avoid this scenario, we miss that our partner and I are we're probably on the same page, which is we both don't want to lose the relationship.
That's right.
And we both want to be in a place where we feel alive. We feel free. We feel expansive in the relationship instead of confined and drained and trapped. And so it's a matter of like, well, we both want the same things and we both want to avoid the same things. So we can be allies in this.
Right. And that's actually, I want to dovetail off what you just said, because that's a huge piece. It can look a lot of different ways when in the approach. So one approach is, I'm afraid that this is going to end us or destroy us somehow, and I'm really scared to get into it. But what are you scared of, right? And then you're like, well, yeah, I don't want us to break up either. And so then there's that shared piece around like, wow, we both want the same thing. That's very different than more of a controlling power over stance, which is like, you better get your fucking shit straight, otherwise I'm out of here. Like an ultimatum, right? Which is like, this needs to get handled, otherwise I'm done.
Right.
Which can be sometimes the line that needs to be drawn, but really when it comes to wanting to work something through or work something out, that's not going to be the way that's going to get you there.
It's not co-creative. It's not, hey, we're on the same page, shoulder to shoulder.
It's me. It's my ultimatum. It doesn't matter if you're in the room or not. I've made up my mind.
It seems powerful to set that boundary, but in reality, it actually just, I don't think we get this.
I see it as a plea, but
I don't think we get the satisfaction in knowing that the other person really wants it. They're just doing it to avoid the bad thing. Right. I want to feel like you and I are on the same page to create what we want rather than she's only doing this shit because she doesn't want to have something bad happen. Right. And that's where we don't feel that satisfaction. Like, does this person really want to be with me, or they don't want to be alone?
Yeah.
I don't want to be plan B.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
So, okay. Yeah. So I love that. It's like where we usually right on the same page, where we want the same things. And I think this is also great for those people out there that are sitting there like, I know that I really don't want to be with this person anymore. And to own that.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
But I still want that person to be happy. I want to be happy. I still want that person. So there's still an alliance there. It's just a matter of that the path might be different.
That's right.
And so if I care about your happiness, you care about mine, then are you really happy just having a kind of a drone version of me walking around the house instead of somebody that actually wants to be with you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's not
so we got to play for
anybody.
I think the point is we got to play for something bigger than our immediate short-term comfort in this thing. If we're going to look at it through that lens, we know we don't want to. Maybe we know we don't want something bad. Neither of us wants to feel drained or trapped or stressed out or bored or isolated. We do want to feel free or alive and have peace of mind and a deep sense of love and connection. So if we know that that's what we're playing for, let's play for that. Let's go for it. All right. So what do? We talked about all the problems. We talked about all the shit that's happened, and we talked about all the breakdowns. So let's talk about the process here to start helping these folks out. What you got?
I mean, really, like we've named some of it already, which is take responsibility. It really like stop the blame game, stop finding ways to support the story you're telling yourself about whatever's going on. Like just knock it off. Or if you don't even know you're doing it, write it out. Here's the story I have about him or her. Here are all the ways that I see and believe that the story is true.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a huge piece. And then like get over yourself with the story, because the story creates power. Like it has a person feeling powerful, like, oh yeah, that's what's going on. Be willing to recognize that you're co-creating whatever's going on. You are 50% at least of what's up.
Well, you get to take 100% responsibility for your part in it.
That's what I mean. Like most people won't take any sense. It's like, it's not me, it's them.
Right.
So the piece around like recognizing this is a co-created, the dynamic that's happening, whatever it is co-created.
Right.
We've gone X amount of years without ever bringing X, Y, Z up.
And I've got a responsibility to that.
And we only fight this every 6 weeks, but we don't actually talk about it when we're in a well place.
Right.
When we're resourced, when we want to connect over it. We only bring it up when we're ready to loaded for bear.
Yeah. I was talking to one woman one time, and she was complaining about this guy and what an asshole he was. And I was just like, why is this guy allowed within 100 yards of you?
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, why? Right. Why is there? Why? So it's that if this dynamic is there, what part are you playing? This guy's an asshole. This guy's inconsiderate, or he's asleep at the wheel. Then why is this person allowed in your life? Like, see where you're choosing to allow this person in there. Why is this woman allowed in your life if XYZ is happening? So that's the part where we don't see how we're taking responsibility of that and we're not speaking up.
Yeah, and I want to be mindful of like the way that you spoke to that just now and the context that we're in. that can be taken as a story of like, why am I even allowing this in my life? It can kind of go towards that ultimatum-y place. So when something's not happening, I think we want to really come back into, all right, what can I do? Like, where am I in this? Am I just standing in the corner with my arms folded, doing the side gaze thing, glaring? Or am I leaning in and being willing to say, you know what? I realize that, yes, one of the reasons that we fight is that I can't bring this subject up without being angry. I can't bring this subject up without being bitter. I just have so much energy that's not good around this that I don't know how to do it another way.
Well, this is why you get help, right?
Yeah.
You need a third person in the room. If you think about, hey, I've just got my own world of what's happening, and you got your own world of what's happening. To play facilitator in that process is really, really hard. So
yeah.
And the reason why most of us aren't getting help is A, it's just uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. B, it feels like a risk. I don't want to put the time and energy and money into something if I don't think it's going to work. But C, it's really that, like, I don't want it to be that serious that we had to go get help. There's still a stigma around getting help, especially for men, that somehow if we get help, it means we're weak.
Now we're really in Shitsville.
Well, it's just this kind of image, like, oh man, what will they think of me if they know that my wife and I have gone to a counselor? What will they think of us if they know that we've gone and we had to go get help here? There's still this like stigma. We'll take our car to the shop. We'll bring a contractor out to the house to fix our roof. We'll do all these things to get help in that way. But if our relationship's stuck in the ditch for X weeks or months or even years, there's this thing of like, we don't get help. We shouldn't need help. We shouldn't have to deal with that. And like you pointed out earlier, we've had no training in how to do this shit, but somehow we're supposed to have it figured out and we shouldn't need help. And I just want to poke a hole through that. Get over yourself.
Please do. Yes.
Get help.
It's so outrageous.
Whatever that might look like.
Yeah, it just makes no sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the third one is speak up. Stop hiding out. Tell us about that.
If your partner's the one that's hiding out and you sense that there's a thing there, ask. Get
what's
curious.
Going on?
Yeah, what's up? You seem off today. You seem like you're avoiding me. I've noticed that you haven't made eye contact with me today.
And yeah, you don't want to be like, I notice you're bitchy.
Well, yeah, people do it like that.
My
I mean,
point
that's
is,
part of the fumble fucking, but
right,
it's like, yeah, for sure.
But my point is, like, it comes out as more accurate.
Why are you being such a bitch?
Why are you being such a bitch is not the curiosity we're talking about, right? So it's that where it puts us on the defense. And, a lot of times guys will tell me, what do I say so that she doesn't get mad, which is the wrong attitude to take. Yeah. It's more like, what do I do? I want to convey my curiosity. I want to convey that I care. And so be willing to ask questions. She might blow up.
Yeah.
Right?
And I respect that that's one of the things they ask. And I get asked that too. And there's sort of this, like, where are you coming from? Are you really genuinely curious, or do you just want the problem to go away?
Yeah, what's wrong with you? I'm trying to have a good day. What's your problem?
Totally.
Or are
you
like PMSing or something like that?
Basically, the message if you were to say that to me, the message that I'm getting is change whatever's going on over there so I can become more comfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to get anybody, and it's not getting deepen any kind of connection, and it's not going to help anybody through a thing relationally.
Yeah, I don't like how you're being. You need to change. That's what's getting conveyed there, and what you're pointing to.
Even if you're saying, like, no, I really want to know. Like, it's.
Is that how guys talk?
Yeah, they all talk like that. They all of them across the board. No, okay. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Sorry, I threw you off there.
The question that I like. It's certainly in my practice, but socially too, the first question I ask people when they're like in their sort of like, this is what's wrong and with them, or this is what must be going on, or I don't even know what's going on. Often there's a lot of, I don't know what's going on. And so then my first question is, well, have you asked them what's going on? And like I said, in the beginning of the interview, silence, nothing. There's not an answer because they haven't gotten curious.
Well, I think it feels like I can't go there, right? And I think what we're speaking to is a pretty subtle distinction, which is, can I ask without needing them to change, right? So if you're sad, and I like, hey, what's going on? I notice you're sad. It's a lot different than like, what the fuck's going on? right? This energy, like, I need you to stop being sad because I'm uncomfortable when you're sad,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
So if I don't need you to stop being sad,
That's
or I don't
right.
need you to
Yeah,
stop being
that's-
angry,
yes.
then it's just like, you help me understand what's going on.
Yeah,
Seems like something's going on for you. What's going on? And then like, I'm just sad because XYZ happened. Okay, got it. You need anything? Okay, then you can go be sad. Go be sad the rest of the day.
And you know, listeners notice the stance, the difference in the stance. Like how you're being right now is like, you're totally fine over there.
My well-being's not attached to what you're
fine
doing.
to whatever's going on over here. You're just curious. That's all it is. You're just wanting to connect in and know what's
Right.
up.
And she may be defensive, big time defensive, right? She's got her own shit going on and just may not want to even own that she's sad. She might have her own stuff going on. I've been
Or
in
she
that.
might not know it.
She might be out of touch with it, even though she's walking around with tears in her eyes and, you know, she can't get out of her pajamas for 2 weeks. So it's just
Well,
a little extreme.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, or
a
once.
little practice in self-awareness there.
Yeah.
But.
But it happens. It's just like, I'm fine, which is how I want to project my,
Yeah.
how things are, but I'm
Sure.
really not. So, but the point is like, see if you can let go of your well-being or needing to attach your well-being to how your partner is, right? And I think a lot of us are like, I'm only okay when my partner's
Big
okay.
time.
Instead of like, cool, they may be sad for the next week or so, but I can still just want to find out, hey, you want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, there. You know, you're reminding me of a thing that you used to do with us. This was years ago, but I always loved it. Was like if you'd notice something was going on with me, and you'd be like, "Are you okay?" And I'd be like, you know, like I'd be all kinked up and I'd be stressed, or I'd be like, "Not now," like I'm just full, or I can't. I don't even know if I'm not okay about something, but I don't know what. And you would always stop and you'd make sure that we made eye contact and you would say, "Are we okay?" And there was always this like unwinding and settling for me where I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, we're fine." And so there's this, your curiosity brought that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful experience for me because I might like, if there was this like, why are you being such a bitch? Or why are you so stressed out or whatever? I'd be like, oh, now I have a problem with you, you know?
Right.
I had a friend when I was going into grad school. I lived in the mountains and he would say, let's play a game called Clear It Up. And I just loved that about him. He was an older dude and he was one of the first people that taught me about clearing things up. And so this is something that the listener can really take away, which is see if you can identify whatever story you're telling about the other person or about what's going on in the relationship.
Doesn't have to be true. Doesn't have to be justified or
that's
explained.
right.
Just what's the story? What's
Just
the assumption?
what's the story?
Name one. Like what?
You don't care.
I got a story that it says you don't care about.
You don't care. You
about
don't
what I'm
really
doing.
care about me, or you don't really care about us. You care more about this than us. Or
I got a story that says you don't give a shit about our finances, and that's why you do whether. Or I got a story that says you're kind of done with the relationship. You don't find me attractive anymore. Whatever that story might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever it is. Or it could be something like, I'm thinking of roles too, like we go back to the overloading trash, and it could be a story like, you're just waiting for me to do it. If you wait long enough, then I'll be the one to do it.
Okay, so instead of being like, you're just waiting for the da-da-da, now it puts me on the defensive, which is like, I've got a story. Are you waiting for me to tell you or ask you to take the trash out?
And even like, so with that one is good because it's complex. It's like there's a story within a story. That what you just said around like, are you waiting for me to take the trash out, presumes that person sees that the trash is overflowing and that matters to them.
Oh,
so
right.
so we're getting into like the breakdown of how fast this can escalate, which is
Right.
why it's tricky. But it's like if you, so the practice is to like slow way down and try to identify what are some of the stories, the assumptions, the beliefs that you see are going on with the thing that you struggle with. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's all him. He's just got all this trauma. Or he just won't stop smoking pot. Or like, oh, he just doesn't give a shit. He's not emotionally intelligent. It could be anything. And that's one story that you're holding. So there's one possibility of like, are you just infantile emotionally or what? That would be like confirming the story in the curiosity. So you don't want to go there.
Okay.
Right. But
it's also confronting.
It's very,
And it's going to put the person in a defensive place.
Well, and it's kind of a put down. I mean, it's
condescending.
like there's an element of, it's like, I've already decided that you're emotionally infantile and I'm just going to say it to you.
I don't see you as a
how
peer.
You respond.
Yeah. I don't see you as a peer. I don't see you as a partner here. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole clear it up thing. So that's what, and also that curiosity really blends with that nicely, which is like, have you asked what's going on here? Have you asked if this person like sees that when the trash is full, it needs to be taken out? Mm-hmm. Have you asked how not having sex impacts them?
Mm-hmm. I have noticed we haven't had sex in 3 weeks, and I've got a story that you don't notice that. Is that true?
Yeah.
Right.
And so the not noticing is loaded, right? If you ask that, because it'd be like, oh, are you saying I don't care about sex? Immediately a new story shows up.
Right.
But if we stay with the curiosity of like, wow, that's hard for me to hear because I thought that we had a lot of sex or whatever, right? And then are we still even here in the same room while we're checking out stories? Because so many new ones want to come in.
Right. We get lost in the stories instead of what's actually happening there.
Yeah. And it's easy to layer them so fast. So it's like, hang on, slow down. I just want to find out if that's been on your radar. Let's
slow that down. That's a good one, right? So, hey, I've noticed here's the thing that's happened, or we can objectively look at and measure. This is a good one. Where's the trash? Trash is full. We haven't had sex in 3 weeks, right? So there's the thing. And then there's a story we attach to that. Okay. Yeah. And the story we attach to that is the thing that pisses us off.
Right.
We make it mean something. So the trash being full is not necessarily the thing that pisses off. It's what we make it mean. Oh, my partner's trying to piss me off, or we're not on the same page, or they're not listening to me, or they're disrespecting me. That's the thing that has us be like, ugh.
Or they only care about themselves.
They only care about themselves.
So oblivious.
I don't matter. So that's the thing that has us get resentful. Or we haven't had sex in 3 weeks. My partner doesn't care about me. My partner doesn't find me attractive anymore. Mm-hmm. That's the part that hurts.
Yeah.
So there's the objective thing we can look at. Okay, we haven't had sex in 3 weeks. Then we can check it out. We can check that story out. Hey, and we can even just get okay. Like, we can even just see if it's okay. Like, are you okay? I've noticed this is what's going on. Is everything okay with you? Instead of assuming, even drawing this huge conclusion that you don't want to be with me anymore. But it's just to recognize those things. Here's the objective thing. What's the story I'm creating as a result of that? Mm-hmm. That's my story. That's my story alone. Mm-hmm. It might be right. Mm-hmm. It could be right. Mm-hmm. But when we jump to the conclusion that it's right and it's true, that's where we break connection. Mm-hmm. And that's where the other person can feel wronged. Is like, wow, you don't get what's going on for me. That hurts. You don't care about what's actually happening to me. You've already decided what's going on for me without talking to me about it. And I think that's where couples get into where they wound one another, is when they just assume, I know what's going on for you. I don't have to ask.
That's right.
And there's a thing of like, no, you do, motherfucker. Like,
absolutely.
I'm a part of this. You don't just decide what's going on for me.
Yeah, it reminds me of a couple that I saw not that long ago and she was like, you know that this hurts me when you do this thing, and yet you keep doing it. So are you intentionally trying to hurt me? Like, the question wasn't there. It was more like I just spoke that as a question, but that was what I worked with her on, was like, why don't you ask?
You know,
this
hurts me,
hurt you.
Instead of,
it was like, you're trying to hurt me. You know that this hurts me. You know that this upsets me, and you just did it again. So
there's
what
the assumption.
Fuck?
The assumption.
The assumption is like, he's doing this to hurt me. He doesn't care.
Right. So it's an attack.
Well, it's defense.
Assumed.
It's a defense based on the story of the attack.
It's assumed that he's trying to attack her in that way.
The story is,
Which of course would have you feel
the
pissed
story,
off or hurt.
He doesn't care, and there's lots of stories that could be told about that. So it's like, slow way down.
Okay. That's the thing we just want to, that's a tool that we can use right now. We can use it everywhere and just start to notice, hey, this thing just happened. What's the meaning? What's the story? What's the assumption I just attached to it? Because it's different for everybody. Mm-hmm. We go in and watch a movie. All three of us walk out with different versions of what happened in the movie. You have different stories based on the thing that we watched on the screen. And we assume that what I saw and what is what you saw too, and what you interpreted.
Yeah.
And that's where connection breaks down. That's where trust breaks down, especially when I just automatically assume you see it happening this way. You you watch these idiots fight on cable television on the news. They assume that the other person gets their point of view and that they're crazy.
Yeah,
like
it's that old story of the 3 blind men touching the elephant, and each of them speaking of their own experience.
Yeah,
and that's a thing in couples, is that, and often that relational sort of 101 that we never learn, which is like, we both have really different experiences, and they can both be true. It doesn't mean that our stories are true, but how they occur, how the interaction or the exchange or whatever, how it lands for me is still true to me in my experience, but they can be radically different, which is why people can seem like they're on different planets.
Okay.
So part of this, what we're talking about doing with curiosity, what we're talking about doing with playing Clear It Up, what we're talking about doing with that kind of being willing to make mistakes and explore in the name of connecting, is that there is this willingness to see another perspective other than your own, even when your own is really, 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 really important, and you really want to be seen and heard, and it's so obvious, and everybody should know, and everybody should get me, and all the things.
Get over yourself.
What would happen if you suspended, could you suspend your own stance, your own thoughts, your own beliefs in the willingness to put yourself in the other person's scenario, experience?
So we'll wrap it up here. The things I want you guys to take away, just really clean and clear. If you're complaining, turn it into a request, right? If you find yourself bitching and moaning about something, get really explicit about what you want instead. Quit playing defense and name it. Hey, I would like to have this. Would you be willing to do that, right? That's the first thing. And number 2, slow down, get your head out of your ass. Don't assume that everybody sees the world and assumes the same things that you do. Assume that they've got a completely different perspective or a completely different experience on a situation than you do. So that's where you can get curious. You can figure out what yours is. So if X happened, okay, now this is my experience of it. This is my interpretation of it. This is my story about it. Let me go see what's true for her. Let me go see what's happening for her, instead of jumping to conclusions that, well, obviously her behavior says X, Y, Z.
Right.
It's not obvious. Go check it out. And then just understand this is really tough. We don't get trained this stuff at younger ages. Get help.
Yeah.
Go find somebody that can help you out. You can get really specific. We want to get through this particular challenge. But if you learn these skills of just checking these types of things out, I find that we trigger each other way less. We offend one another way less. It doesn't feel like we're being attacked anymore. We feel more like allies. We feel more like peers. And that's usually where things can get cleared up. We can work on things when we treat each other as partners, instead of somebody who's dangerous. Like I've got to be on guard about this person because they're going to blow up or whatever. So let's keep it really simple and have that takeaway. Anything you want to add?
I just would say, I was thinking about your subtitle to this show, and I was thinking, like, for the people that are personal development junkies, like, this is the fun part. This is actually the fun part, where you really get to know somebody else and yourself while connecting with them. When we're in contact with another person is often the time where we get to know ourselves most. And we don't get to do that when we just kind of stay in our own little heads and worlds and stories.
Okay. I was going to share something kind of edgy.
I do it. I gotta go. I have a client.
All right. So the website that has the women masturbating, and then watching the women masturbate and how different it was for each of them.
Yeah.
They had different things that they learned how to pleasure themselves.
Totally.
There's a presupposition. A lot of it's like, this is the way to do it, right? This is the way to touch a woman. This is the way to touch, and even depending on the time of the month it is for a woman, it's a different way to touch her. So just borrowing that mindset, that we can't assume. We might be right that this is how you would touch a woman at this particular point, or this is how you would talk to this person, it's different for each of us.
Yeah, and it's really it's really a brain training. I mean, what you're talking about, like this is the way to do it. Our brains naturally do that. Like if you see dots in the form of a circle, you're going to say that's making a circle. It's just dots in a configuration on a page. But our brains are like, no, it's making a circle. And so it's really, really natural. All we're talking about, that's everything that's going on. It's supernatural that it happens. And the stance that you're talking about coming from is that level of like beginner's mind. What if I didn't know? What if it was different
Even
today?
if I've been with this person for 10 years, what if I didn't know?
Absolutely.
And that's the thing we're trying to avoid. We're like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't have to go through the effort. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to have to, it's just like, I want to be done. So that mindset of completion, I want to be done, I want to have it handled, is the thing that's eroding our relationships. It's the thing that's
ironic
eroding
that it's like the thing that we want to bring us peace or safety or whatever is the thing that has us feel least alive.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more about Alyson, you can go to AlysonLanier.com, AlysonLanier.com. Thank you.
Thank you. There were a couple of points where I was like, I just look into your eyes and I was like, what are we talking about? He's so handsome. All right, I really gotta go.
If these interviews are helping you, then please visit The New Man on iTunes and leave us a positive review so others can discover the show more easily. Thanks for listening.